Okay. Hello. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dr. عاصم Jamil, and today we'll be talking about managing user experience design projects. So before we start, because I've been told that there is a mix of an audience, we have many students and also some professionals as well. So I'd like to just ask you a question that how many of you are students? If you could raise your hands, please. Okay. So rest of you are working professionals, right? That's what I understand, mashallah. And how many of you from the working professionals or students have a background of user interface or user experience design? 1, 2, 3. All right. Any one of you have an experience of managing projects or a background of project management? 1, 2. Okay, great. So we have some project management background as well. Okay, excellent. That's great. Let me start briefly with my introduction. Right. My name is Dr. Asim Jamil, and I have over 20 years of experience in managing projects, program management, and portfolio management. Currently, I'm working with a consultancy firm based in Riyadh. The name of this company is SMX, and we are basically a design studio and mainly managing design-related projects. As a background of my qualification, I'm a computer systems engineer. Then I did my MBA in project management. Then I did my master's, MS in project management. And then I did my doctorate in business administration. So this is like a brief introduction. Other than that, I've done certifications. I'm a certified agile coach. I'm a certified trainer, certified Scrum Master, and PMP, and other certifications as well. Right. For today's session, we'll be covering 3 major topics today. So first of all, we'll be learning about what is UI and UX design. In the second section, we'll be covering the user experience design process and the project phases. And in the third phase or section, we'll be covering managing user experience design projects effectively. Right? So let's begin with the first section of user interface and user experience design. So if I may ask you, what do you think or what do you understand with user experience design, UX design? What comes to your mind? When? Excellent. The journey of the user, usability of a product or a service, right? What else? How the user feels. Exactly. So this is the user experience. And what is user experience design then?
Maybe designing the steps that the user will go through in the journey.
Exactly. Very right. Like how we design the experience of a user when he uses a product or a service, right? All of us sitting over here are users of any product or of many products and services. We use many products or services in our day-to-day lives, right? Over here, for example, if we are sitting on these chairs, we are using those chairs, right? And we have a experience associated with it. So whenever we use a product or a service, we experience some feelings. Either they are positive or like negative, or they are just medium, right? So whenever we use a product or a service or a system, we feel or we experience some feelings. So designing that experience is basically user experience design, right? So this is a user experience design. It's a process of creating meaningful, enjoyable, and efficient interactions between users and products or service or a system, right? So this is a definition. And it focuses, the field of user experience design basically focuses on the user needs and behaviors and pain points. So if a user is feeling some pain points or some like bad experiences, how we can improve that experience is the field of user experience design. And this user experience design field can be applied to improve the experience of any product or any service. But for the sake of this session today, we will be focusing our conversation on improving the experience of websites or mobile applications, right? So this will be our scope of discussion. All right. So to better understand user experience or user interface, I have shown here a website. This website is www.arngren.net. So as you can see that this is, let me try to zoom it in a little bit more. Right. So this is their landing page. When you open this website, this page comes up. So what do you think? Do you feel anything wrong in this page? What do you think is wrong with this page? That's one way of saying this as well. Yeah, that's true. That's true. What else? I'm like, okay, let me ask you a question that what is the purpose of this website? It's different projects, okay. Exactly. We at the first glance, we cannot tell what is the purpose of this website, right? It's noisy, yeah. It's like full of everything. They have put everything on the page, right? So we cannot even understand what is the purpose of this website, right? So if I ask you what products they are selling, we cannot really interpret that what kind of products they are selling, right? So this is kind of very confusing. And now if we have to purchase something, can we know how to do that? It's very difficult to understand, right? Even we cannot see the products. If we, for example, if we have to buy a wristwatch, how can we find the wristwatches over here? It is very difficult. There's no filter or there's no like feature where we can categorize the products. There is one like wristwatch over there, but we cannot see the list of other wristwatches available in their like inventory, and we cannot find the products rightly, right? So now this Aaron Green website might have a huge team in their background. They may be having lots of big offices or thousands of team members working. But if they have this kind of a website for the users, do you think the users will purchase something from their website? They will not. They will be very much reluctant. For example, if I have to purchase from this website, I'll think a number of times before making a payment, that whether it's a legal website or whether it's a really or a scam, right? So this will come to our mind. So this is how much important the user experience or user interface is from the perspective of any company, right? Because the company, we don't know anyone in the company. This is the touch point of the company that we are interacting with and that we can see. So if that does not look good, the image, whole image of the company is kind of like doubtful, right? Okay, so if we do a user interface or a user experience audit for this website, we can find hundreds of issues. So let me just count a few of them. For example, the cluttered and overwhelming layout. Like the white spaces, there are no white spaces. The images are scattered here and there throughout the website, right? Then there is a poor information architecture. There's no information architecture of the whole website. We cannot see navigation menus. We don't have categories of the products, right? Then lack of visual hierarchy. There's no all the fonts and colors are same or similar, right? There's no difference between categories of the products and the fonts and colors they are using. Text overload. There's a lot of text on the website. We cannot understand what to read first and what to see next. Non-responsive design. like if we open this website in a mobile phone, it does not open correctly. We cannot even see the products which we are looking at in the web page. Lack of clear call to action. The user does not know what to do next. He or she has come to this page, but they don't know what to do next or where to click to make a purchase, right? So there's no call to action. Then inconsistent or distracting color scheme. The color schemes that they have used does not make any sense, or image overload, and similarly many other no user friendly filters or anything search options available in the website. So these are some of the issues that are there with regards to the user interface or user experience design. Now, if we talk about user interface and user experience, many people use these two terms interchangeably. They think that UI and UX are both the same things. But what is a difference between UI and UX design?
UI is the elements that in the interface.
Okay.
The UX is the journey that you will use this element upon it.
Excellent, excellent, great. So this, like, we will talk about what are the basic differences between a user interface design and user experience design, because these two fields are different fields and there are specializations in user interface design and there is a specialization in user experience design as well, right? So for example, the definition, as my brother said, that overall experience is the focus of user experience design, whereas for user interface design, the focus is on look and feel of the product, right? Objective is, for user experience design, the objective is user satisfaction, whereas the objective of user interface design is to make the product or service visually appealing, right? So this is one of the differences. Scope of user experience is, but it covers the whole user journey from the beginning till the end, whereas the focus of user interface design is to make the product visual elements attractive. Key elements of user experience design are user research, personas, and such elements, whereas the key elements for user interface design are visual design, color schemes, and typography. Processes like user experience design starts with research, whereas user interface design starts after the research is conducted, right? And then the outcome of user experience design is easy and functional, enjoyable experience to use a product or a service. Whereas the outcome of user interface design is to look or make the product visually appealing or attractive. All right, so let's move to the second phase or the second section of our session, which is the user experience design process and project phases. Okay, over here, let's say we are a company, as a Max company where I'm working with. We receive a project from this website, which is Aaron Green website. We receive a project from them that they have assigned us a project to improve the overall user experience and user interface design of their website, right? They have asked us, they have issued us a purchase order that we have to conduct research, usability, an audits, and then we have to redesign their whole website. So this is a project that we have received. And now today in our session, I'll walk you through this whole process, that how we actually implement the project, right? So these are the 5 phases of the UI UX design project life cycle. First, in the first phase, we do the discovery and research. In the second phase, we do ideation and wireframing. In the third phase, we do prototyping and testing. In fourth phase, the implementation and handoff. And in the fifth phase, we do post-launch optimization. Right? So these are the 5 phases of project lifecycle that we have. So let's start with discovery and research. All right. So let's say now we have received a purchase order from a client to implement this project. So what is the first step we should take to initiate the project? Analyze.
Analyze the current website.
Analyze the current website. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. To understand their requirements, and that's great. What else? Anyone else? Understanding the user needs. Exactly. Great. Great. Please. Yes. Right. 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 Okay. Okay. To do the research, interview with the users, and all that. Right. So all these activities are part of this phase of discovery and research, right? But first of all, when we initiate any project with a client or anyone, for example, the project, we have to create or define the scope of the project as a project manager, right? Let's consider ourselves in the place of a project manager. When we have to initiate a project, we have to limit the scope of the whole project, that we know that, okay, this is the scope of the project. These are the resources that will be required to implement a project. And this will be the timeline to implement the whole project, right? So what is the document where we have this information? Basically, we develop a project charter document. A project charter document is a document where we list down all this information regarding the project, right? So in this phase of discovery and research, what we do is we define the project objectives, establish the scope, formulate the team, and create a schedule for the whole project. We understand the user needs and pain points, and also we gather insights through research to make how are we going to design or redesign a product or a service. So these are the objectives, and the activities that we do is we define this project scope, we define the constraints and timeline, we conduct stakeholder interviews and competitive analysis with the other competitors in the market. And also we perform user research by interviews, surveys, and define the user journeys. So as an outcome of this phase, these deliverables are produced, which are a project charter, a project plan, user personas, user journeys, and research report. So I'll just walk you through these deliverables that are produced at the end of the phase 1. Like, first of all, we produce or we create a project charter document. And a project charter document is a formal document that outlines the project objectives, scope, stakeholders, and key deliverables, so that everyone, all the stakeholders are on board and they know that this is the objective of this project that we are going to undertake, right? So this is the project charter document that is created. And then a project plan is created. What is a project plan? Exactly. It's a timeline of all the activities which we are going to perform in a project. And also what we do is we break each and every phase of the project into activities. We identify the timeline that when these activities will start and finish, and who is going to perform those activities. Because there are many team members who will be involved in executing a project. So if I ask you what kind of roles will be there in conducting a project, Like one is project manager, right? We have UX researcher. What else? What are the other roles that would be required to implement this project?
Developer.
Developers. Okay, great. SMEs, subject matter experts. Okay, okay. Sorry? Testers, exactly. Great. Project owners or the sponsor or project owner. Exactly, exactly. That's great. Anyone?
Microsoft project.
Microsoft project, yes. This will be used to create the project plan, for example, right? So the project manager will be the person who will be using that tool to create a project plan. So that's great. So we will have kind of like UI UX researchers, designers, then developers, front end developers, back end developers, testers, right? And business analysts. So all these are the roles which are required to implement a project successfully. So then we also identify the user personas. What is a user persona?
It's the character of the user that will use your product.
Excellent, exactly. So we identify what type of users are we expecting to visit our website and who are our targeted users, right? So we identify and create their user personas by identifying that who, for example, this is the about information, that their age or occupation would be like this. These will be their high level needs. These will be their pain points. What are their behaviors, personality traits, and goals? Why they are coming to the website to do what, right? So these are the user personas that we create. And then we also develop the user experience research report, right? After conducting the user interviews and like surveys, the end report that is generated mainly has these high level sections, which is like introduction, research methodology, what methods did we use to conduct the research. For example, did we use surveys, did we conduct face to face interviews, or did we conduct online interviews? Who were the participants of those research? What were the findings? What are the user journeys, as we were talking about earlier? And what are the issues and key pain points? And then recommendations and conclusions. So in this first phase, what are the responsibilities of a project manager to manage a project? These, like for example, that we talked about, develop the project charter, define the project scope, create project management plan, determine project budget, plan resource management, and acquire team members. Because, for example, when we are initiating a project, the project manager does not have a team assigned to him. So he needs to identify that, okay, for this specific project, I need a researcher, I need a designer, developer, or whoever is required, he identifies and mentions it in the project charter. Right. So the other things is like communication plan. How are we going to communicate with the clients, right? And how we are going to communicate between the team members. So all these things are planned in the beginning: risk management, issue management, and also stakeholder identification and management. Then we hold a project kickoff meeting with the client to formally kick off the project, right? And then we coordinate user research. All these are the responsibilities of a project manager. Similarly, there are responsibilities of other roles, but these are the main responsibilities, since the topic of our today's discussion is managing user experience design projects. So I've focused here on the responsibilities of the project manager. Now let's dive into the second phase of the project lifecycle, which is ideation and wireframing. So once we have concluded the research, we now know what are the pain points that the user are facing and what are the issues the users are facing, right? So in this phase, the objective is to generate and visualize ideas for the best user experience. That how can we enhance the experience of a user, right? So this is the objective of this phase. And what do we do in this phase? We do brainstorming and sketch the design solutions, right? We create information architecture of the site or the site map that, okay, this will the home page will have these, we'll talk about it in detail later on as well. And then develop wireframes and easy, like early usability testing with the users. And the deliverables will be wireframes, information architecture, and user journeys. So what is a wireframe? Anyone?
Let's say the initial shape of the project.
Product, exactly. So if you see in this diagram, we are creating a mobile app, for example, right? Here, this hand-drawn diagram is a wireframe, right? So here we don't have to use a lots of skills of designing or developing. We just only create by hand. We can draw the diagrams that, okay, here will be the button, here will be the text, here will be the picture or something like this. And this we are going to draw it from hand. This is called as wireframe. If we make it a bit more, like increase the fidelity of this diagram, it will be a mock-up. And if we develop the whole prototype with all the colors and all the features, but still it's a design, it's not a working product. This is called as a prototype, right? So these are the major items that we are going to develop. The wireframes are we are going to develop in this phase. Then we are going to create a information architecture of the whole tasks to the team members, manage the stakeholders' expectations. All these things or all these activities are performed in all the phases of the project. And at the end of every phase, it is very important for the project manager to manage documentation and submission of deliverables to the client and obtain the client's approval. This is one of the challenges that a project manager faces in a real life when he or she is managing a project. When we deliver like submit a deliverable to the client, we have to get an acceptance from the client. Because if this acceptance is not obtained, later on, the stakeholders might change for the project. The management of the client might change, or somebody else comes up with some new ideas which were not there. So we need to make sure that at the end of every phase, we have a handoff or acceptance of the delivery. Why do we get this acceptance?
Continue working because we can't pass this phase until we get to acceptance.
Exactly. And why do we get this acceptance? Because of the reason we have for any project, there is a timeline and there is a specified time that we have to complete in. We cannot keep the project open endlessly, right? So the project is by default is activity that we do within certain limited time, cost, and scope, right? So this is very important that we manage the time, cost, and scope as a project manager, right? All right, let's go to the third phase of a project life cycle, which is prototyping and testing. So what we have done so far is in the first phase, we have done the research. In the second phase, we have done ideation. We have created many ideas and shortlisted which idea worked for us in the best. And then we have created the wireframes. And now in the third phase, we are going to develop the prototypes and test them with the user. So the objective of this phase is to create interactive prototypes like high fidelity. High fidelity means that we have all the details in this product. For example, the website, the final website, how it will actually look like, how the buttons will look like, what will be their size and shape and color, it will all be reflected in this prototype. It will still not be a functional website, but the prototype is created before starting development of that website, right? So the activities we will do, build interactive prototypes using tools like Figma, Adobe XD, and conduct usability testing with the real users, analyze test results, and iterating on the design, and the deliverables which will be produced as an outcome of this phase are interactive prototypes, usability test reports, and the design iteration updates that we are going to do in the designs. So this is kind of an interactive prototype that we have designed for the website or a mobile app, right? At the end of this phase, we will have this kind of a prototype developed so that if there is any change required from the client's side or any stakeholder, they can raise this at this point, right? So if we have, if some client says that, okay, we don't like this color, please change this color, or we don't like this picture that you're showing, so we'll change that picture because it is very easy to change that picture or color at this stage when we are designing the prototypes, right? So we have still not started the development of the website. All right. Also, once we have developed these prototypes, we conduct usability testing with the actual users. So we, for example, actual users are any person or any student. We will go to a student, will do an interview or a session with them. We will uh, like uh, give them a device to use this interactive prototype and try to understand. For example, for this Erngren website, we have designed a prototype, and we will show them a revised prototype, and we will ask them to please make a purchase of a product, right? So the student or any user will go to the website, will be able to find, and then we will note the time that or the steps he's taking in order to get to the place where we want him to reach, right? And if he is still struggling, then we will try to identify what are the pain points and what are the reasons he or she is struggling to be there, right? So we'll improve the user journey again if there is a requirement, right? So the usability testing report has a project overview, purpose of testing, and the scope. What testing approach that we are using, who are the participants, what are the scenarios of test, and what are the test environment and tools. And in key findings and insights section, we'll see the overall user experience, that how, what the expressions of the user when he or she was doing the steps that we were asking him to perform, success and failure rates, time on task and error analysis, and pain points and friction areas. And then based upon that, we will make some recommendations or action plan that if still in our revised design or prototype, there are still some issues that the user are facing, we'll identify over here and we'll try to redesign the journeys and or the user interface as per the requirements to address those pain points, right? So, and then we have the conclusion and the appendices. So what are the responsibilities of the project manager during this phase? Oversee the prototyping process, right? Plan and coordinate usability testing sessions with the users and facilitate stakeholder and user feedback loops. And rest of the activities that the project manager, is responsible to perform throughout from the initiation of the project till the closure of the project, right? For example, manage scope, assigning tasks to the team members, and all those things, and obtaining the client's approvals. Okay, so then we move on to the fourth phase, which is implementation and handoff. So in the implementation and handoff phase, the objective is to now develop the actual website or a mobile application that we are developing, right? So we have, in the previous phase, we had done the research, we had done the wireframes, we had done the design and prototype. Now we have the developed prototype, which is approved by the client that, okay, if you are going to develop our website in this way, we will accept it, right? So we have identified all the user journeys, features, and everything by this time. And now in this phase, we are going to collaborate with the developers to start developing the website and provide detailed design specifications to the developers to start implementation. So activities that will be performed is prepare design system, which I'll be showing it to you in the next slide. Create design specification and style guides, developer collaboration and design handoff, and review the development progress and provide feedback. And deliverables for this phase are design system, style guide, and develop website, and go live of the website. That website that is actually developed with the code in the background, and we can go live with that website. So what is a design system? Anyone knows what is a design system? So design system is kind of a library of the color schemes of the button and of such components that we use in developing any website or a mobile application. What's the use of it is that if, for example, 2 or 3 or other developers are creating any component, they can reuse the same components. The button that has been developed, the next developer does not have to recreate or redevelop that button, right? Or what are the color schemes that are available for this whole, we are going to define them in the design system, right? So this design system is developed in this phase, and the final developed website is the final outcome that is delivered in this phase of the project, which is live on the internet. The project manager's responsibilities in this phase is to manage the design to development handoff. When the designs are developed by the designers, they are handed over to the developers to start developing in the HTML or any language that they are using. Oversee development implementation, manage user accessibility acceptance testing, ensure quality assurance, and final testing with the users, and also supervise deployment to production to go live, and plan and manage go live and launch, and client and stakeholder handover and documentation. And the rest of the activities, we have already seen them in the previous slides. So once the project is like the website is developed and launched, then we go to the final phase, which is post launch and optimization. The objective of this phase is to see or monitor the product performance in the actual environment, right? So, for example, for Aaron Grant website, we have redesigned and redeveloped the website. Once it went live, we will see that how now the users are experiencing and what is the change in their behavior, if the sales have increased or decreased, or what is the load time of the website, and all these factors are monitored during this phase. The activities that we do is we gather feedback and analytics details. We conduct the A/B testing with different types of products, and then identify and fix usability issues, implement and iterate improvements. Deliverables for this phase are user experience performance reports, A/B test results, and continuous design improvements that we have. So, as an outcome of this phase, we have a UX performance report where we have like performance evaluation criteria like usability, accessibility, responsiveness, speed, performance, and what methods and tools that we have used to do that, and what are the findings, what are the recommendations, and what are the conclusions for that. And the project manager's responsibilities in this phase are monitor performance and user feedback, facilitate post-launch and usability testing, and manage the issues that are there and bug fixes, and like document lessons learned and formal project closure. So why managing UX projects is unique is that when you are managing the team of developers and designers, there is a collaboration required between them, right? So this collaboration is very important, and the role of project manager is very important in making sure that this collaboration is timely being done, right? The handover is being done and collaboration is being done. Then design and development iterations, that once because if the changes are required in the designs, the designers can quickly change the designs, but once that design has been implemented by a developer, it is very difficult or it is time taking to improve or make the changes in the actual developed website, right? So this life cycle has to be controlled, balancing the priorities and goals between the user needs and the business needs, because business is always saying that I want the project to go live as soon as possible, whereas we have to do the research, we have to do all the activities that we saw in the life cycle. But some of the clients are saying that okay, skip the research, we want to see the final product. So without having the research done, it is very difficult to come up with a better user journeys or better user experience in that sense, right? So scope creep is the increase in the scope of the project and changing requirements, and time versus go to market, that the clients are saying that we need to launch the product, and uh, we have to fulfill all the steps for that. And user research constraints are there for that matter. All right. So we'll go to the third phase or third section of our presentation, which is managing user experience design projects effectively. So in managing the user experience design projects, we have to take care of two things, which is the user experience design process itself, the one that the life cycle that we saw, as well as we also utilize the project management methodologies, and we use agile project management methodology to manage the day-to-day implementation activities of the project. And how we do it, we are going to talk about this in this section. So the project management of a UI UX design project involves continuous iteration, user feedback, and collaboration between the team members and the stakeholders. So there are different types of life cycles of a project. So those who are with the project management background must know that there are different types of project life cycles. For example, there is a predictive life cycle, iterative project life cycle, incremental project life cycle, and agile project life cycle. So let's have a quick look into these life cycles. Predictive life cycle of a project is when we do the activities or when we complete the phases of the project in a sequential way. For example, we complete the analysis phase, then we move on to the design phase. Then after completion of the design phase, we then move to the build phase and then test phase and deliver phase, right? So any example of a project which follows this life cycle? Construction project, okay, yeah, we've designed first and then we start the implementation. Great. Anyone? This is a waterfall, exactly. In other terms, we call it as a waterfall life cycle of a project, right? Where, for example, developing or car manufacturing, right? And or any type of manufacturing, for example, we do the design first, we create and finalize the design, and then we move to the development and testing and all those phases, right? So this is a predictive life cycle of a project. Then there is an iterative life cycle of a project where we go from analysis to design, and then we do multiple iterations of the prototype. We create a prototype and we test it with the users, and then we refine that prototype and then move on to the next phase. So there are multiple iterations. For example, in construction industry, we cannot do the iterations, right? Once we have done the development, it is done. We cannot redevelop that. So here we do the iterations in each phase. We do the prototype and then we define, build and test, and then we deliver the product. In incremental life cycle, what we do is we create a chunk of a product. We do all the things related to analysis, design, build, test, and deliver one chunk of a product. For example, if you are aware of ERP systems, right? Enterprise resource planning systems. They have various modules, HR modules, supply chain module, like purchase module, and all those modules, right? So in incremental life cycle, what we can do is we will complete, for example, the purchase module of a ERP system, and we can go live with that, and people can start using it because it's in itself, it's a functional product, right? So then in the next phase, we will go and start building the next module of that system, for example, right? So this is how the incremental life cycle is. And then there is an agile life cycle of a project. What agile life cycle of a project means is that we further divide the work into smaller chunks, right? There is a concept of like having vision, then apex. We divide the project into apex, then we divide it into features, then we divide it into user stories, and then we implement the user stories, which we will be talking about in the coming slides. And this is how we proceed with the implementation of a project. For implementing our user experience design projects, we are using a hybrid methodology where we are also utilizing the user experience design phases of the project. And in parallel, we are using the agile methodology of managing the project. What it means is, I'll be discussing in the next slide, but we are using one of the very famous agile project management methodology, which is named as Scrum. Many of you might have already heard about Scrum. So it is a framework or a methodology, agile project management methodology, and it is based upon the concept of a game called rugby, right? Where the team takes the unit to a distance in phases and passing the ball back and forth, right? And Scrum, the literal meaning of the Scrum is this position that the players make while starting the game. So this is the literal meaning of the Scrum, basically. In Scrum, what we do is we divide the whole product into a product backlog, where, for example, we have a complete product of an ERP system, right? Then we will create a product backlog by dividing that into modules. Modules will be epics. Then we will divide them into features, and then features would be further divided into user stories, right? And so product backlog is the container of all those user stories for the product that we have divided that into, right? So product backlog is a container of all the user stories. Then once we have the product backlog at the beginning of a project, we do sprint planning. There is a concept of a sprint that we perform the project in the sprints of certain duration. For example, we agree at the beginning of the project that in every 2 weeks, we will perform the work and complete some workable solution to the clients. So this sprint is basically a duration of time that we agree to perform the work into multiple iterations, right? And sprint size is usually from 2 to 4 weeks, right? So we can agree that, okay, the sprint size will be 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But this sprint size or sprint cycle will remain the same. And in this cycle, we are going to implement the project, right? So this sprint planning is done at the beginning of the project. That when, like for example, beginning of the sprint, that we are going to start from next week. For example, on Sunday we will have a sprint planning meeting where we will agree that, okay, out of the whole product backlog, where we may have like 100 of items, right? Out of those 100 items, we will pick and choose that, okay, the most priority items are these 5 items, and that we can like deliver or develop within next 2 weeks. So we will choose that in the sprint planning meeting, and then we call that as a sprint backlog. So the product backlog had 100 items, for example. We have chosen 5 items for the sprint backlog. And then in sprint backlog, in every 2 to 4 weeks of sprint cycle, we meet between the team members on every 24 hours. And this meeting that we do on every after every 24 hours, which means that every day we have a 15 minutes meeting between all the team members, which includes, for example, the designers, developers, the testers, and everyone are there, and they meet daily on regular basis at the same time for 15 minutes to identify if there is any progress or if there are any challenges that they are facing in implementing a project, right? And then at the end of that sprint, we have two events, which is one is sprint review and the other one is sprint retrospective. Sprint review is basically a session where we present the work that has been developed during that sprint to the product owner. And product owner or the client representative gives us a go ahead or approval that, okay, this is built as per the requirements of the specifications of the product, right? And then retrospective is a session where we meet with the all the team members to identify what went well during the last 2 weeks and what are the lessons learned and how we can improve our performance for the next sprint, which will be of next 2 weeks, for example, right? So this is a session that we have. And then at the end of every sprint, we have a potentially shippable product increment. For example, we might have added one more feature of login and registration, for example, right? So at the end of that sprint, the user will be able to log in. The other parts of the like application might not have been built as yet, but this feature is usable and the user can use and test and log into the application. All right, so these are the major components of the Scrum that I talked about in the previous slide. There are roles of a product owner, Scrum Master, and team. There are ceremonies, and let's quickly have a look at it. The product owner is a role in the Scrum framework who is responsible for the product backlog. Like the person who breaks down the whole product into chunks of features, like apex features and user stories, is the responsibility of the product owner. Then there is a role of a scrum master who is responsible for all the daily meetings, for example, and the sprint planning meetings, sprint retrospective meetings, and coordination and resolution of issues that any team member might be facing. And then the development team includes all the roles like business analysts, designers, developers, testers, or anyone front-end developer or back-end developers. These are the development teams. Then there are ceremonies that we talked about: sprint planning, daily scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. We have already talked about them. Sprint planning is a meeting which is held at the beginning of the sprint. For a sprint of 1 month of duration, the time period of this meeting, sprint planning meeting, is 8 hours. So if we have a sprint size of not 1 month, let's say 2 weeks, the duration or the time required for this sprint planning meeting would be reduced to half, which is like 4 hours. So this is what we actually do. At the beginning of every sprint of 2 weeks, we have a 4 hours meeting with all the team members where we agree on what needs to be done during this sprint and who is going to do what, right? So this is, it has two parts: what part and how we are going to do this. So what we are going to do and what are the activities required to do that. And daily scrum, as I told you, that it's a daily meeting of 15 minutes where the team meets to update on the progress and if they are facing any issues. And then at the end of the sprint, we have 4 hours meeting where we review the product or like the development done during that sprint. And sprint retrospective is a meeting where we talk about improving the process, what went well during the sprint and what could be improved. And the artifacts or the items that we talked about during the scrum are the product backlog, which has all the features and list of all the user stories. Sprint backlog is like subset of the product backlog, which we are going to implement during the existing sprint. And then we have burn down charts, which represent that during the sprint, if we start at the beginning of the sprint, we have this many number of hours of effort required to develop or create the products which are required to be developed by the end of this sprint. And till the end of this sprint, the number of effort required usually comes out to be 0. So this is how we manage the day-to-day activities of the user experience design project. So basically, it's a combination of the user experience design process as well as agile methodology that we have adopted to implement our user experience design projects. So with this, it concludes my presentation for today. Thank you very much, everyone. We can take the questions if there are any questions or any comments, or anyone would like to ask any question.